young people of color from low-income families who, unlike you guys, really have no idea what tech or coding jobs and careers might be like. So think about someone who's always on their phone, who uses tech all the time, but it's coming from a family where maybe a good job might be a parole officer or a janitor, a security guard, someone who's not hooked into a professional network. And young people come and work with us. They do a 6-week immersive boot camp where they learn basic coding skills. They learn a lot about agile development and methodology. They learn a lot of 21st century workplace skills. And they build websites for small local businesses. We've worked with about 250 young people across the Bay Area. We started in Oakland. We're expanding around the region. We've done workshops in East Palo Alto and Richmond, California. And it's really been a great experience because 90% of the people we work with make decisions like, wow, now I see the point of going to college. I want to go to college. Oh, I dropped out of college. Now I want to go back to college. Or I really can't afford to go to college, but I'd really like to do some kind of certificate program or training so that I can work in tech. So, you know, with our area being a ground zero for so much innovation and wealth and technology, you know, we don't want local people who live in all of our different cities to miss out. So we're an initiative to really help address that. I'm going to show you a couple of videos, too, about Hack the Hood. A year and a half ago, we had worked with 18 young people in Oakland, and then we entered a competition called the Google Bay Area Impact Challenge, sponsored by Google. We ended up getting a $500,000 investment from Google. So the first video is their video that they made for us for the campaign. And I'll show you another video that are young people from our program talking about their experiences. So we had to compete.
My name
to
is
win the
Zakia
money,
Harris, and I'm the co-director of Hack the Hood. There's this perception about young people that they're checked out and disengaged and don't really care about what's going on the planet. There's a lot of smart, intelligent young people that really want to engage in the tech industry, but don't really have an opportunity to access it. Hack the Hood puts young people through a boot camp of sorts, where we train them to build websites for local small businesses. And during that same time, we also empower them with life skills, entrepreneurship skills, and 21st century skills to really be leaders of the future. Our goal is to train over 2,500 young people in over 5 cities across the Bay Area, and to move our young people from not just being consumers of technology, but to become innovators, and to utilize it to gain valuable work experience for themselves while helping local small businesses at the same time.
Okay, I got one more. So when we started Hack the Hood, we got the Google money. We had no full-time staff. We have a staff of 15 people now, and we are going to be working in 10 cities across the Bay Area. And this is from our spring boot camp. These are some young people
Hack the Hood because
talking about
I knew
Hack the Hood
that
and their
in
experiences.
today's day and age, everything was more technology driven, and I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't left behind.
I wanted to do something I've never done before, see if I was interested, try to find what it is I want to do, and so far it's been a really good experience.
And I joined Hack the Hood because I basically want to bond with my son. He's into computers, so I can basically show my son how to utilize computers and expand his horizons in the technology.
Hack the Hood has basically given me the opportunity that many other places haven't. So far, this program has actually helped giving me confidence in myself, has given me that confidence to go back to school also.
What surprised me was how open Activate became. It's like when I first got here, I was like, oh, that's this group of people, probably not going to talk that much, probably just going to be working. And then as the program went along, I noticed that we separated into our groups, but then we became like more connected with each other. I love it. I like the environment, I like the people.
The laid-back environment, but it's still productive.
I felt honored to be even offered the opportunity to go to a company like that, and with the soft skills that Hacklehood teaches, it makes me more confident and engaging in networking.
I like the work that I do. I like the people that I work for, making their websites. I don't really.
Before I joined Hack the Hood, I definitely wasn't really thinking too much about tech.
I thought only nerds did it, and anybody who was just good with any type of technology, that's all they did. That wasn't my skill.
It wasn't as attainable to me, like I didn't think it was something that I would be doing.
But now that I am in Hacklehood, I'm building websites and I actually have live websites on the web. It's actually a good feeling. It shows I can do more than just the things that I was doing before.
You see how Oakland is changing. So we need to get that, experience so that we can get into the tech field and stay in our hometown instead of literally being pushed out. When people think Oakland, they think shootings and violence, and I want people to know we're more than that. Because we are. We're a lot better than that, but nobody's really giving us the opportunity because of the color of our skin.
I didn't think I could be patient. I didn't think I could design a website, but I'm doing it. I did it, and I'm still doing it. I'm still here.
And what Hack the Hood taught me is how accessible it is. It's not just for the most brilliant minds in the country. Anybody can get into it if they have the right resources, the right help and motivation. And these were things that I thought were previously out of my reach, and Hack the Hood taught me otherwise, that I can be the innovator.
Thanks for showing us that, Susan. Now that you know a little bit more about what Hack the Hood does, I want to first intro both of our speakers, starting with Susan and then with David before we wrap up to the actual questions. So if you just want to give a little bit more background, I guess, about what motivated you to start Hack the Hood, as well as, I guess, what your position entails right now, that would be great.
Sure. So I'm one of those people who's kind of an accidental techie. I started out back in the day as a writer. I was very analytical. I went to graduate school for English literature. Really came from a family that didn't see girls working in science, even though my dad was a doctor. And back when you guys were probably just like maybe not even born, who knows, or maybe you were, I started really getting into cyberpunk, and right around the time that the first Mozilla browser came out, I was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. So I started learning HyperCard, different kinds of Pine-based languages. I was working for an education company called Scholastic, and I was like, we have to go on the web. So I ended up being someone who was kind of a pioneer in the early days of the web, moving to Silicon Valley, running the Netscape.com portal for America Online, running Yahoo Personals for Yahoo, and working for a lot of tech companies as an executive with a product development focus. And then I moved to Oakland and did a media tech nonprofit. And in Oakland, I saw that so many people were poor and needed jobs. And I was like, speaking truth to power and writing about issues is great. But we have always people in Oakland who, they don't show up and search. Like, they might have a nail salon or your bookkeeper. You look for them, like in Google Maps and directories. They're not showing up. What if we could help all these businesses get more visible? So we got some money from Google Ventures. We had a pilot with adults going out into like East Oakland, talking to people and saying, can we help you get your business visible online? And does anyone here have a relative who's a small business owner? Okay, so you know how suspicious small business owners are of being cheated. And they were like, is it free? Is it really free? Are you going to do this for free? So we partnered with all these community-based business networks to get them to trust us and say, no, we'll do it for free. And we got 75 businesses visible on the web in about 6 weeks. So we said, hey, what if we taught young people how to do this? What if we got teenagers that, merchants look at as the Scrooge of their community to actually be consultants and allies, helping them build websites that were, responsive, mobile friendly, etc. So we applied for money. We got a little bit of money from the city of Oakland, and 5 weeks before we had to open, we did our first boot camp for 18 young people, and they built 65 websites. They all learned basic coding, some CSS, HTML, SEO, and 92% of the people completed the program. So these were kids, a lot of them who thought they were going to work heavy construction. They were in a mayor's summer job program, and they just loved Hack the Hood. We were like, oh my God, we are onto something. This really works. So that was 2013. And we were like, what if we could go year-round in Oakland and be more than a 6-week program and reach more people? We only reached 18 people. So we're like, well, how could we get some more money? So Google had something called the Bay Area Impact Challenge. They said you can win between $100,000 and $500,000 to solve the area's problems. So I was like, hey, let's apply for that. Maybe we'll win $100,000. That'd be great. My co-founders who are from there. So basically, for the past 2 years, we've been one of the best funded educational tech startups you can imagine, because we've had Google, Infosys, Yahoo, Facebook, the San Francisco Foundation, so many funders helping us build out our model. And what we basically do is we take young people, who in some ways are probably a lot like you guys, in other ways they're not, because they don't come from communities or families where they see tech as being something they can do. They're more like, oh, I couldn't really do that. Nobody I know does that. And we take those people and we expose them to careers in tech through real world hands-on project-based learning, and people get really excited. So we're not a coding program. We're not trying to graduate people who have, JavaScript or full stack expertise in 6 weeks. But we are turning people on to possibilities. So 90% of the people who go through our programs typically are like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to be a front-end developer. I want to do back-end systems. I want to do coding. I want to study computer science. It's different for every person, but we feel great about it because our mission is to reach people who might not have access to these kind of skills, show them what they are, and then help them find a path to education and ideally to better paying careers. So this year we just issued an RFP. We're going to work with 10 other organizations around the Bay Area. We have mentors, we have tech companies who do site visits, work with people in the startup community. If people here are interested in volunteering or maybe being even a paid instructor next summer, we're definitely going to be looking for people. I'd love to talk to you, but it's been an amazing project.
Great. Really inspiring, Susan. I have much less of an extensive history. Is this working? Hello? Okay, cool. First, before I introduce myself, I want to say sorry for the gentleman's phone that I stepped on my way here. I'm really sorry. You can come up after the talk and I'll pay for the damage. Alright, so I work at Khan Academy. I actually just graduated last year. I work at Khan Academy as a software engineer. Who here has heard of Khan Academy, actually? Oh, that's awesome. So I don't have to give too much of a spiel there. So Khan Academy is a non-profit education company. Our mission is a world-class education for anyone, anywhere. Free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. We have resources for anyone from grade 2 to second year university. Anything from math, science, history, finance, anything that you can learn in school, basically. You're probably, you might know about the videos that we have on our website. We also have exercises, computer science platform, and the key things that we're focusing on recently is access, personalization, and content. So access, that means giving this material, giving this content to anyone who might need it. Not just those people in the United States who have internet access, but those people in India who, a lot of them don't have internet access, a lot of them don't have computers, but they have smartphones. So we built an iOS app, and we built an Android app recently. In terms of content, that's scaling up the content that we have. So we were very concentrated in math, increasing the subjects that we cover. And personalization, so that means is when you're working with a tutor, when you're learning from someone, you have one-on-one instruction that moves at your pace. So education that moves at your pace, an automated tutor. So yeah, that's a bit about Khan Academy. And as for myself, as I said, I graduated just a year ago. I work as an engineer. I graduated from the University of Waterloo in Canada. I interned at Google, Khan Academy, and machine learning startup. And I've also worked on healthcare.gov, resuscitating the website after launch in 2013.
Thanks, David. I think the really interesting thing about both Hack the Hood and Khan Academy is that they're really working to make education accessible in very different ways. Whereas Hack the Hood is taking a much more personalized, in-person, and very specific approach. Obviously, Khan Academy is taking a global approach and trying to become a lifelong educational partner. But obviously, both are filling a space that the current education system isn't filling. And so I want to ask you, what ways do you think the current education system is failing to serve students? And how is your organization being part of the solution? And where do you see your organization fixing what the current education system is failing for students?
What a good question. So, so many of the people who go to Hack the Hood are people who not only may not identify as academically gifted, even though they're smart, but they're typically people who are in high schools where maybe there's one calculus class, maybe there are very few people of color in that class, maybe there are a lot of people in remedial classes, and there's pretty much definitely no classes in any type of coding. So, you know, there's this giant education equity gap in our schools based on income. And, you know, educated parents in a good school district can demand contemporary, up-to-the-minute resources. In a poor school district, not only might there not be the tax dollars, but, you know, there isn't an outside community of parents or others who are saying, we have to bring these things inside. So, you know, what we see is that we have young people, and once they discover what some of these things are, work really hard and are really smart about learning them, but they just haven't been part of their everyday life. So we're trying to create pathways for people that they're just not getting in school, right? And often people that we're working with, if they went to college, went to community college, and they don't have access to a good counselor, and they're maybe in remedial classes and they're spending their money, and they're kind of like, what am I going to get out of this? Maybe I should drop out. I don't really know what to take out some point. So again, like people who don't necessarily have a good path. So we're really trying to provide pathways for people that will help them realize, wow, here's something I could do, and I'm going to help you figure out how I'm going to do it.
So inspiring. From my point of view, what I think the failures in education are is the one-size-fits-all pattern of education. That means is that we sort of expect everyone to move at the same pace, expect everyone to be interested in trigonometric identities. And if you don't keep up, then you don't keep up. And let's say one day you forget you're sick, and you didn't really get that lesson about adding fractions with unlike denominators. And then that's just going to impact you year after year after year when you move on to algebra and other subjects that require that build on that cornerstone. And then as a result, as a kid, you're like, am I stupid? Like, why can't I keep up? And really, it's just that one piece of content that you might be missing. So what we're doing to try to address that problem, from my point of view, is we're trying to give students a way to basically fill in the gaps in their knowledge if they need to. So let's say you missed out on that class. Well, you can come to Khan Academy and you can watch Sal's explanation of adding fractions with unlike denominators. Or if your professor just isn't very engaging and you're not understanding what he or she is saying, you can get an alternative explanation at Khan Academy.
This question is just for you, David. Just leading off of that conversation, I think in the most recent years, massive open online courses and other software solutions have definitely supplemented material that students learn in class, and it's really changed both the accessibility of content and the nature of how professors and teachers teach their content in class. So I wanted to ask you where you think the field is headed within the next 3 to 5 years, and how you think different software solutions can be better refined to serve students to make it not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah, great question. So what I see as the biggest problem in massively open online education, also known as MOOCs, are, as you say, the one-size-fits-all delivery mechanism, which then also leads to a massive drop in engagement. So if you're working with a tutor, you might stick with a tutor the entire time, but there are statistics like 90% of students from certain MOOC websites drop out. They don't make it all the way to the end. So I see the problems there is that if you can just take this course online, there's no reason for you to keep engaging with it. There's no one that's keeping you accountable, and if you're disinterested in the topic, or if it's just moving at the pace than you are, then that can be issues. So one area that I see MOOCs heading is addressing this problem of engagement through perhaps increased personalization. So imagine a software AI that basically looks at what you've been working on, what you're struggling with. Maybe you can even chat with it. You can say like what you want to learn, and then you can tailor the learning content to where you're at. So that's one thing. The second thing is access. So again, MOOCs are they're online, but what if you don't have access to the internet? What if we could take all of Khan Academy's 3,000 to 4,000 videos, compress them through compressing the audio content and vectorizing the video content, fit it into 1 GB or 2 GB SD card, preload it onto a few million devices, partner with some organizations.
Great. This question is just for Susan to talk about more what you were saying about how the students who enter Hack the Hood may not have had the previous exposure to technology, and how increasing that exposure earlier on in education might be important. How do you think teaching skills such as coding, basic technology and computer skills can be better integrated into secondary education? And what challenges do you see coming up with that when technology education is expanded at scale across multiple secondary high schools and so on?
I think we're at this time where things are really changing. I came here from a meeting I was having with the head of strategy for San Francisco Unified School District. Hack the Hood is a partner in their Vision 2020, Vision 2025 plan, strategic plan for their schools. And what they're planning to do in the next 2 years is introduce basic coding in kindergarten. So, 5 or 6 years from now, there won't be people in schools who never had some kind of basic coding. It'll be just like learning now. It's another language that you'll become familiar with. Right now, we have this giant gap of people who are going to go into college and go into the workforce who haven't had any exposure to these skills. So we're kind of in this transitional time because we can't say, oh, well, let's just wait 10 years. We'll just start with, the kindergartners. It's like, now we have people now. So I think that schools are really scurrying to catch up. But I think that it's really challenging because, as you guys have probably already discovered, tech is a very insular and tribal community. And often people in schools don't really know what they should be teaching, or not necessarily teaching in a way that reaches everybody. So, some of the programs happening in San Francisco right now that are coming into high schools, like Mission High School, to teach alternatives to the regular curriculum, are not attracting diverse groups of students. So when you look at the population of the students who are in those classes, it really doesn't reflect all of the different backgrounds that the school is trying to serve. So I think that there's a constant challenge, which is kind of to your point, David. How do you meet people where they are? How do you kind of have an approach to teaching technology that works for many different kinds of students? So someone who might be super academically motivated but didn't think about coding or tech as something they could learn can get really engaged, but then somebody who maybe is on their phone all the time using tech but didn't really understand that people build those things, they could get really engaged. So I think for us, we feel like we're trying to provide an alternative to a lot of the traditional things that happen in high school because we're not operating during the school day. We're a summer and outside of school program, so we really want to reach people who might not be the people who've always been engaged in school, right? And for those people, obviously bringing better quality instruction and better quality curriculum in is going to make a huge difference, but it's not going to reach everybody.
Definitely. And while there are alternative methods to the traditional classroom, like coding camps like Hack the Hood, and then also like software solutions like Khan Academy, there's also a new grad space such as charter schools. So I don't know how many people in the audience know, but there are various charter schools or private schools such as Alt School, also the Design Tech High School in San Mateo. They're trying to revolutionize, I guess, secondary and high school education by making the vast majority of the curriculum technology-based. And so I wanted to ask both of you, what do you think the intersection is between methods like that and the method micro-organization is? How do you think both of those fit into this ecosystem of education?
Well, I'm completely fascinated by Alt School. I met Max Ventilla before he started when he was, I guess he had just been acquired by Google for Aardvark, and he's like a search guy who went off into education. So I think that whole idea of like a super well-funded alternative kind of endeavor, is always disruptive and always really interesting. But, how do you scale any of these to reach people who are poor? Like, it's really easy to understand how wealthy people can build solutions. There's so many private schools that have been started by rich people who wanted to fund their children having a good education. I can think of at least 3 of them in the country, and they're all great. But they're really small, and they're for an elite. So I think the question for me is, how do you take some of the really interesting lessons that you can have in a for-profit charter school, or you can have in a project like Alt School, and then scale them out so they're accessible to more people.
I think that's a really good point about how do we take these schools and take their lessons, take their learnings, and scale it up. Because what I see from where I am at Khan Academy, we have a private school downstairs from where I work. So our office is a 2-story building. The second story is where Khan Academy employees are. And the first story is a private school called the Khan Lab School. And this school is basically Sal Khan's vision for what he wished school could have been like. So basically it's, imagine you work on whatever projects that you propose. There's no grades. you might be 7 years old and you're working with a 12-year-old. 12-year-old might be leading a lesson. Or maybe you were in a traditional school system, and then your parents decided to send you to this school. And maybe for the first few months, it might be a little weird because there's much less direction than a traditional school system. But then you're empowered, basically, to pursue what you think is interesting for you. You're given the resources to do that. And what we've seen is we've had students who've had behavioral issues from other school systems. They come into this school system, and within a few months, those behavioral issues are gone. And suddenly they see purpose. They feel like they're people. So that really inspires us about the Khan Out School. And where is it? It's in Mountain View. We have about 30 kids. Currently, it's only been going on for a year and a bit. The first batch is sons and daughters of friends and family of Khan Academy employees. And we're hoping to, as you say, Susan, scale up the lessons and also expand the office and the students at the more diverse. So to your question about how do we, like, the intersection of these sort of alternative schools and my organization, Khan Academy, we actually have the kids at Khan Lab School using Khan Academy. So the mornings they'll be doing traditional education, learning math, history, traditional high school, middle school, elementary school, high school curriculum, and in the afternoon they have basically their own time to pursue their own projects. And when they're doing this, they're using all the tools that we might do in the modern workplace or while you're here in school. Google Docs, they use Google Calendar to find their time. They use email. So yeah.
So I wanted to ask, I guess just feeding off of that, how you think advances in technology impact the motivations and goals of students when you see them interact with your educational tools at the university.
Well, I think that people want education to be real. Nobody wants to just memorize a textbook and recite it back. It feels really boring and not relevant. I think that a lot of great learning is happening where people can really apply it. They can do projects, they can create businesses, they can solve problems. And classes where people get to do that are classes that people get really engaged with because they're getting to exercise their mind and be creative problem solvers using the new skills that they're learning through mastering education. So I think that one of the things that's kind of interesting is that there's a whole thread of charter schools where it's like route learning and memorization, and then there's like a whole thread of schools like the one that David's describing where it's really about creative problem solving, having accountability for your own learning, learning harder and harder things over time, making real things, and that's so much better, right? That's so much more interesting than having to just be drilled in a lot of data.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask how you think advances in technology impact the motivations and goals of students.
So I think there's, to your point about coding, advances in technology allow kids and students to be part of that, to be part of those advances in technology. They can be like, oh, I can make those apps on the phone that my friends play with that. And we have at Khan Academy, we have a computer science platform where with just a few lines of JavaScript, we can already start having graphics appear. And we designed this platform to be very easily accessible, very easy to use, and where community is key. So and you can vote up projects that you like. You can comment on them. You can take someone's project, you can fork it, and build on top of it. And we've seen massive engagement on this platform. We have kids who write thousands of lines of code who are in middle school or elementary school. So I think that's one way that technology could impact engagement. You could be like, oh, cool, I can make stuff, and I can share it with my friends. And maybe when you're, maybe you can also be part of other forms of education. Maybe you can use code to learn physics, for example.
I want to be a little bit subversive, and also think about all the people you know who are obsessed with something like Minecraft and all the incredible things they're making inside Minecraft. You know, it's like people, if they are not necessarily getting stimulated in school, you find all kinds of places online where they can create things. And, you know, often they don't realize that those are skills they could also apply to academic. They're building something where they have a lot of audio, they're making sound, files of some type. So, people think about it as fun, those are fun activities, but they're actually foundations for learning. You're actually putting a lot of time and effort into mastering skills to make things. And I think that one of the things technology's done that's great is it's provided alternatives to boring schools for people. People don't have to just sit in a classroom and feel bored because they either know what the teacher's saying or they don't really care to know and have to do it anyway. The internet is like this giant library of things to engage with. So you can watch a lot of porn and stupid movies and not make anything, or you can make all kinds of amazing things, right? And get really engaged. Just, think about the maker culture that so many of us are part of in terms of the videos we produce and the photos we share. That has to change education, and that has to flow back into giving students more control over how they learn things.
To speak to that point, what do you think is the best advice you can give to the students in this room to expand their own learning opportunities, to feel more engaged in their classes, to feel that they're taking full advantage of their college?
Before answering that question, I'm actually curious why y'all are here. What's been on your minds recently, and how can we best answer that question for you? If any of you want to just stand up and give an answer.
Yeah, one reason I came was because I don't really know much about tech and how it can really bridge education. I know Khan Academy exists. I didn't know a lot of things are sprouting about around education, and I really am interested in the intersection, so I'm interested in learning about that. So far, it's been really fascinating how there's different types of learning, and it's growing and scaling, but it's interesting to see what is the next step. So I'm trying to see how I can get involved in.
So here's the interesting thing to think about. Think about schools where instead of people wanting to take students' cell phones away, they actually want them to use them as part of the class. That's probably a watershed right there. How do you make the cell phone something people will use for polling, for doing work on in a class environment, versus the other life that the student's having, they're multitasking because they're really bored in class, how to be there. I think there's like a mental mindset that teachers go through when they start to embrace technology tools as platforms. I remember working with SRI, a big research lab in Menlo Park, a few years ago, and it was like, oh my God, we're going to put tablets into classrooms and give everybody tablets. What a revolutionary idea. Well, we all have those tablets now, right? We all have multiple devices that we carry around all the time. I walked in here and the first thing I said was, where can I plug my phone in? I'm addicted to electricity and it's running out, It's like we're all that way. So, how do we get education to catch up so that some of the things that we do all the time are actually things that feed into ways we can learn?
Did you originally ask about like what advice we have to the people here? Okay, so to speak to that point, actually, I know this is pretty cliche, you probably heard it before, but think about what's something that outside of what you're learning, outside of classes, that draws you in. So I'll give you an example for myself. That was programming. In particular, making video games. So actually, when I was in high school, in grade 10, all I did was play video games. That's all my friends did. And then my mom banned me from playing video games. That was a big turning point in my life because that was my life. I had nothing else to do. So I thought, what am I going to do now? Well, maybe if I can't play video games, I'll make video games. And I'll test out those video games. So I did that, and I actually found that while I was making those video games, I found that process just as engaging as playing the video games. But afterwards, I'm left with a feeling of fulfillment and greater self-respect. And from that, I went into doing more programming things, running the programming team in my school, and led that, and I had this great sense of responsibility that I didn't know I could feel. I used to think that, like, what's the point of life except to get my next fix of Counter-Strike? But I didn't know I had it in me to actually want to be ambitious and want to help out others. So,
Okay, so advice. Meet people who aren't like you that make you a little bit uncomfortable. Push your edges, because you can meet people who are amazing that maybe aren't the people you've always expected you should be friends with. So, push the edges of like who you talk to. Take advantage of the fact that you're young and seek out advice and mentors. People with experience love to help younger people as long as they think you're not asking them for a job. It's like, I'd love to talk to you. I'd like to learn more about what you do. They're super happy to talk. If they think that you're going to ask them for a job, then they get really nervous. Think about taking some risks in terms of classes that you're taking, and think about how can you do some hackathons, how can you do some volunteer projects, how can you do some internships, how can you be in some incubators. What are different things you can try that are more blending real-world learning with the classes that you're taking? I was reading David's LinkedIn resume before he showed up, and I was like, okay, who is this person I'm going to be sitting here with? And I was impressed that he went to a really great university with a good CS department, but I also noticed that he had a lot of good internships, and that he actually is now working at a company he interned for. So I think that on one hand, competing for prestigious internships is cool. On the other hand, just getting work experience is cool. My nephew is a senior in college in New York, and he spent the summer working as a portfolio manager, like search engine marketing, for a big international electronics company. Susan Bingham in New York. He's managing this tiny portfolio of eBay words. He comes to visit me. I take him to Google, and he meets and interviews with all the people at Google who do Google AdWords and search engine marketing, because he's got an equivalency in terms of the kind of portfolio he's managing that makes him a perfect fit if he wanted to, when he graduated college, to try to interview for AdWords, And you think about if you're in New York and you're like in college, it's like, oh, that might be really cool. So, you can pick up skills sometimes in a place that might not be the place that's most expected, but actually can have a lot of applicability and value to opportunities that have come along later, even if you don't realize it. And then think about how you can teach and give back what you know. We work with a lot of people who come from a certificate program called General Assembly. It's a 3-month, $12,000 program where you can specialize in a skill and not bypass college theoretically. And we've probably had 3 different instructors go through that program and then come and teach at Hack Good, because then get good at it because of your knowledge. And that makes you so much more articulate when you talk about that with people who are trying to sort of test
student myself, at Waterloo, I basically didn't have any time for very many extracurriculars, if any at all. My time was just filled with doing schoolwork and looking for jobs. So I really admire anyone who has the time to put time into these volunteering organizations, or even joining something like this, like Blueprint. Something that inspires you, that basically surround yourself with people that you think are cool. And even if you don't think you're that cool yet, just put yourself in that environment, and nothing to lose. I like to think of massive change as coming from, imagine a giant ship. What turns that ship is a very little rudder. And actually what turns the rudder is another mini rudder at the end of that rudder. And you can turn that mini rudder very easily. You do that by joining a club, or learning more about something that inspires you, putting yourself in a different environment, and then that environment could change you dramatically.
I think the other challenge is just to find experiences you can have in chunks that you can actually bite off. You know, people think about volunteering, like I'm going to volunteer so many hours a week for like 6 months. I think that, you know, in this day and age, things can be very bursty. You can be like, well, I'm going to spend a day volunteering at a hackathon. I'm going to spend, you know, an afternoon helping to plan a clinic, and I'm going to deliver it. I think the challenge is to be realistic about how much time you do have, and find ways to push yourself and challenge yourself within the time you do have, not say, oh, I'm so busy, I just can't do anything. You know, that's kind of an excuse. It's more like, oh, I only have 6 hours. You know, what could I do in 6 hours? Well, maybe I want to volunteer at a hackathon and just help out and see what that organization is like. Or maybe I want to volunteer at an event an organization is having and just check them out. I think it's really important to realize that you can make a contribution that's a lot of small bits. It doesn't have to be like, oh, this is my new part-time job, I'm not getting paid for it, and I'm able to pay for it.
And just to be realistic, if you are currently swamped with schoolwork and you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, like focus on that first. Focus on sleep and exercise. And then you get time, you scale up to 800 minutes.
That's called sustainability.
Thank you both. Now I want to turn it over to you all to see if you have questions for Susan and Stuart.
What do you think are, or for you, like in your experience, what has been the biggest challenge to improve education for people? Is it systemic problems? Is it like psychological motivation problems? Is it like inequity and like money? Like what do you see as like the biggest problems that face like where you want education to go?
I think there's a lot of systemic problems. So, for example, the traditional model of education where grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, you have the SATs, you get into university, you have a good degree, get a job. That basically that top-down pressure forces you into sort of this silo where you're like, oh, I gotta get like 8% on this test, study for this test, so I can do well on this test, so I can get into a good university, and so on. What really inspires me is when people are inspired, when students, when kids find something that really interests them, and this thing that they're really interested in it could be something that they can contribute back to the world, whether it is programming or music or building model rockets or starting organizations or dance or building better porn websites. Who knows? So I think the biggest thing that education could do, the biggest thing that education did for me is inspiring me to find something that I want to pursue with all my heart, and then empowering someone who is inspired.
I think that there are a lot of issues with education that have to do with wealth in terms of resources for schools. But I also think that people can get very beaten down and not really feel like anything they do is going to make a difference. And that's such a demotivating way to feel. And if students feel that way, they really stop trying and they become really trapped. So I think there's a personal empowerment side about helping people realize that they can change their life, they can change their circumstances, they can succeed. There's also the reality of giving them support to be able to make that actually true.
This is a question for Susan. I was wondering, what is your approach for empowering the individuals who participate? I imagine they're signed up and they're part of the program thinking that tech is something that they want to be part of, but as program and so that. So how do you kind of give them the permission to say that, oh, this is something I can do, and this isn't something that's
So when people sign up to do Hack the Hood, they're applying to be paid workers in a 6-week boot camp. And you don't get paid a lot, but the fact they get paid is really important because it helps them justify to their families taking the time to do this full-time immersive program. They also have a chance to earn a Chromebook, which for a lot of the students is really powerful because they wouldn't have an extra $200 or $250 to buy one. They need to spend that money on other necessities. So people come in knowing they're going to get a 2-week boot camp, they get trained in basic web development so that they can build websites. But what they discover a couple of days into the program is that they're learning about the tech ecosystem, they're learning about all the different jobs, and they're learning about the basics of HTML and CSS. In other words, what's underneath like the front page of a website. And most of them haven't realized like how easy it is to learn basic HTML and CSS and how much you can change and influence what you're building by modifying a template, So that's like a really powerful discovery. And, by starting to learn HTML and CSS, students are starting to learn coding language and learn how to solve problems around coding and development. So when they start meeting the tech mentors, they're actually speaking the same language as these people that they thought they were nothing like. It's like, oh, I'm talking about front-end development with someone who works at Facebook, and they're actually listening to me like I'm intelligent. I never thought that would happen. Wow, and they're doing this much harder version of the thing that I'm doing, but we're actually in the same thread. 2 weeks ago, I never thought about that. So it becomes very powerful, and I think that when we started Hack the Hood 2 years ago, I was a techie immigrant and I was very naive. I was like, okay, we're going to show people these skills and they're going to have a pathway. They're going to come out of this boot camp and it's going to be amazing. And what we learned is that we have to provide a lot more support than just a 6-week boot camp. Most people have issues around money, don't have money to go to college full time, they have to work, they don't have access to good counseling or good resources. They're going into companies where often nobody looks like them, no one comes from a background like them, no one will have confidence, people are alienated. Tech companies can be very harsh and unwelcoming environments to people. They can be very judgmental. You have to be like them. They're not going to become like you, right? So we've started to increase the amount of alumni programs and other training programs we offer so that these really hardworking, passionate people that we kind of turn on to tech can actually get more support to go to the next level and actually start to get a lot more actual outcomes in terms of more education and improved income.
So I think he mentioned really interesting. The idea that these students are coming in, not necessarily because they want a job, but it's like, oh, I like technology, I like phones, and I feel that the natural and the opportunity afterwards are not necessarily the end goal, but part of the process. So it's a lateral mindset. Whereas I feel the university system is completely opposite. You go to get your degree so you can get a job, and I feel it's kind of antithetical to what you guys are teaching. And I guess just one fact, like in the past 200 years, our entire university system hasn't changed. And he said, oh, we're using phones now. Well, yeah, but it's still the model we're paying for education, and your model, students get paid to learn. And that's a lot more in line with their interests because they get paid for something they enjoy. And the current education system, we pay to get degrees, you know, to get paid. And I think this kind of paradigm is the most egregious when you notice like postdocs, like before they finish their PhD program, they're paying to get qualified, and the day after they graduate, the university now pays them a comparable salary of $70,000 when that is T0 and T1, no change at all. So I'm just curious, like really far off the cuff, like, and the next big paradigm shift, how do you think education is going to change to really accommodate this, I think, gap and people who are qualified and things that I want to teach?
Well, I love everything that you said, and I think it was really smart, and so thank you. Those are great comments. I think that we're in a system, let's be honest, where educational principles are breaking down. On one hand, it's really important for people to have either portfolios or credentials, but you don't really need both. And I think that the university, and I apologize for saying this because I know that you're all really good students, I think the university is a very safe choice. It's the choice that people's parents like, that society likes, that kind of takes you on a known path. But it's not a choice that necessarily supports innovation or entrepreneurship, which are two qualities that are highly valued. So I think if you've chosen the university path, the challenge is to benefit from all of the brilliance of your teachers and your fellow students, because you know that's true. I mean, Berkeley has amazing people. Let's not pretend it's not what you're paying for, right? It's an incredible place to learn, but at the same time recognize that you know there are other pathways now. How many people have heard of the venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz? An important role there, and it turns out to talk to him about Hack the Hood and kind of Mark and Lauren Andreessen has given us money, so I was there to meet some of the people on the staff and talk to them about ways maybe we could work with them. This man has this incredibly powerful role. He never went to college. He finished high school at 19. He went back after he dropped out. You know, if I were one of you guys and I was hearing that, I would be like terrified, because it means like maybe the system doesn't always work the way that like you think it does. So I think, you know, that on one hand, it's like you have the ability to get this great education, you should take advantage of it. On the other hand, you probably need something more to really be successful. And that's really about, you know, being an entrepreneur, being passionate, kind of, you know, finding ways to not just do what you're supposed to, but go beyond it.
David, having been a student a bit more recently, do you have anything to add?
Can you prompt me in particular?
Yeah, so this whole idea that being a student where you're paying to have this amazing education, but that educational system in place or the classes that you take might not necessarily be giving you the full and holistic experiences that you really need to have a comprehensive learning experience. So where do you think shifts need to take, what shifts need to take place in order to make the educational institution more valuable for students?
I think it really depends on what you want to get out of an education. If it's just if you want to get a job so you can live and make money and be a part of society, then I think the current education system fulfills that. That is what it's designed for. I think if you want to get more out of life, if you want to experience more ups and downs, if you want to try things on your own, if you want to I don't know, make a difference in the world or something, then I think independent thinking is very, very valuable. And independent thinking is, I also think that the current education system is lends itself to, because you're being taught the same things. So I think what actually, if this is something you want, if you want to just really put yourself out there, that's what you just got to do. Put yourself out there, do things that other people might not do, try out different things, and then see where that leads you. There's this article about most successful people being at the intersection of many different social groups, being the weak link of different social groups. There's the example of Steve Jobs taking his calligraphy class, and then that being the inspiration for cereals. So you never know what you do is going to lead you to life.
Yeah, so couple of points I had. So I do something very similar to what you do in India and Berkeley. And so one thing I've noticed is like people, they don't use, like college is like, it's really nice that you get to be around a lot of like-minded individuals and there is a lack of interaction. So like if you're a CS major at Berkeley, you're not necessarily talking to a designer at Berkeley and someone who's doing the MBA program. So I was like working with a bunch of MBA students this weekend at a hackathon, and they came to me like, how do you find Berkeley students to work with? And I was like, talk to them. So how do you solve that problem? It's like, that's a behavior change. That's like you have your Berkeley students like all in the same place. You have people in Haas and then even the startup incubators don't talk to each other. Like Big Ideas at Berkeley doesn't talk to Launch. How do you break the silos?
I don't know, but I think those are the right questions, right? Like, what do you guys think? How do you break those silos of Berkeley?
Pizza and beer.
I mean, I'm a huge believer in like raw, naked aggression and iterative failures. Like, don't place big bets where you can't afford to fail. Fail fast and fail often with small things. Like, don't say, well, I couldn't do a startup, or I couldn't do a project, or someone at launch wouldn't want to talk to me. Be like, wow, I'd like to have this experience. I'm going to find people to have it. I think that, people are often way too perfectionistic about whether they're qualified or not. And then the really brash people are like, yeah, I can do that, and they get to have those experiences. So, what's the right balance between being realistic about what your time capacity and your skill set is, and then not being so hard on yourself that like you're waiting for the perfect moment that never comes because you're not perfect yet. It's never going to be perfect. So if there are things you want to do that aren't happening, try to find small ways. Like doing something for a weekend, you can kind of try them out with other people, and if you get rejected or people don't want to do it, it doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It means the person didn't want to do it that day or that moment, and you have to kind of have to be willing to have a portfolio of trying things, right? Find some of the things that are really worth doing.
Okay, so I had a question about like gamification in education, and essentially like, especially with technology-based educational tools, kind of like Khan Academy, you often have this like point system, and you get more points by doing better. And I'm just wondering, if you turn education more into games, do you get students who always go after the immediate benefit rather than thinking long-term? And also, once everything is no longer a game, once they're out in the real world, do they still pursue new knowledge and new opportunities as well as they were when they were in this strict gamified state?
I think that's a really good question, and we have seen this behavior at Khan Academy. So we have a point system. The more points, the more exercises you do, the more points you get, and then you compare your points to your classmates. So we used to have students who would grind out addition 1 hole, 5 plus 9, 6 plus 9, over and over for hours. So they can million points, so we can get that big badge that they really want. So that's very possible. I'm not 100% sure what the right way to solve that is, because on the one hand, with this sort of gamification, you do shift students' time from what might have been more of a program to something very that might be more productive for the future. But then there's a problem of if we give them this extrinsic motivation, do they lose their intrinsic love for learning? And I really hope that we do continue, where we do figure out a way to instill in kids a love for learning because they want to use it to pursue whatever they want to do. And maybe we're part of the solution. Maybe we're not. Maybe that's not where we can come in.
I want to be able to give everyone a chance to have some food and refreshments in their class, so I'm going to conclude the open audience Q&A, but as some people get back, please feel free to continue asking questions. I don't have to remove
What do you guys think about people that
all of them are so shaken up.
Okay, so so the question was, how does a four-year path in college work out versus doing like a coding program? 3 months is not going to be the equivalent of someone who's been doing JavaScript for 3 years. So I think there are some kinds of computer science where you can have a depth in college that you're not going to get in a coding program that's 3 months long. On the other hand, if part of your goal is to be able to make more money than your part-time job, so you can keep learning, in the ideal world, Hack Reactor, General Assembly is going to graduate you with a lot of, say, front-end development skills. You can look to work immediately for a better paying job. So I think it depends what your goal is, the time and the luxury to get deep. College gives you time to think and to ask hard questions without the pressure of necessarily having to have an immediate outcome. But, coding programs can give you a leg up and give you really, really marketable skills. The problem is many of the coding programs cost as much as college. I mean, General Assembly is $12,000. So, that's a big bet, right? If you can't get a scholarship or find a way to go for free, that's a giant investment of money. And a lot of people go through these programs and they don't necessarily get a job because people get hired for cultural fit and having acclimate to tech as well as for their skills. So, it's a risk. It kind of depends who you are, I think, and what you're looking for.
And my question is, how can you change people's attitude against this new form of education? Like how to influence the motivation to study by themselves to be talented is to keep this mind in the first place.
I think that's a really good question. The question was, so Khan Academy and these moves are seen as alternative education. Right now with your school, your class, it's like your teachers and your parents and everyone around you are doing the same thing. They're studying for tests. And so you're also motivated for some other reasons to do that as well. But if you were to do something like Khan Academy, that would be on the side. So thereby, if it's just not working out for you, just don't stop it. Personally, for me, one thing that has motivated me to what motivated me to do something like Khan Academy when I was school would have been having something else to do. In my case, it was programming. I really wanted to get better at that, and I ended up reading college textbooks. Or another example was when I was making video games. I had to learn how to, like, how do I get this angles? And then I tried to do a whole bunch of math with like slopes and stuff, but then that didn't really work out. But what did work was trig. And I was a grade 10 at the time, we were learning trig. I was like, oh my god, this stuff is relevant to me. So I guess asking the question of how can we make education relevant to students? How can we find the things that are, like, what is relevant to a 6th grader? Or maybe how can we inspire a 10-year-old? How do you do that? That's a good question.
I also think it's important to be realistic that most people are relationship driven. As much as we may love the discipline, love science, love learning language, babies seek out basics. We look at pictures of people on the internet. We did a big study at Haskell Hood. We thought, well, we're going to put our whole curriculum online, and people can do half online. It'll be so efficient. And we had these researchers who worked at IDEO and Yahoo do this study. We discovered that wouldn't work at all. That what makes people want to try hard things is having a coach or a peer or someone who encourages them. So if you're just doing it by yourself and you have something really hard that you say, A, you probably can't solve it, and B, you're probably going to give up. Or if you have human beings that you can talk about the problem with, who maybe show you something very simple you didn't see, you keep going. So, we have online resources, but we didn't make the kind of investment in putting all our materials into an online curriculum that we were very inspired by maybe we can do hack the Hood Khan Academy. And when we did research on our population, the people that we wanted to teach, we were like, they need real world relationships to make them learn these things. And I think, all of us are that way to a certain extent. We can do great things with Khan Academy, but then we also do other things.
I think that point about the human factor is a really good one. And I think it really comes down to wanting to feel connected. When I was doing my project, it was really a lot to impress my friends. And also the fact that if you have someone doing something with you, you have someone to hold you accountable, and someone to help you out with your stuff. So perhaps you have offline activities complement online
So yeah, the whole online thing is they only have a 1% retention rate at these online courses, and that's because everyone signs up for like an hour of data science. So you can sign up for it, data asking and all that, like offering discounts for completing your offer half off. Like human to human thing is true because I saw something from United Airlines and they said they thought because the technology will stop traveling, but there's actually human traveling. So basically, business travelers aren't stopping. So they haven't stopped traveling. They still go all across the world to go meet someone face to face, and that should show us that obviously there's a human element to everything, right? Even business, there's technology, education, and that's kind of why online courses as fulfilling. And that's why it's developing nations. What I've noticed is that in India, the bigger problem isn't convincing the students to change to-do lists. It's more the parents and the educators. So our program is actually targeted more towards them. But it's a behavior change that starts here with the parents saying, oh please, do what you want to do. It's more like, no, you got to do science and math. In India, that's what happens. If you have to become a doctor or an engineer, and that's how it is. And that's kind of the problem.
So there's really awesome work that and I think, Susan, you made a really great point earlier about, your Minecraft skills, actually developing really relevant cognitive skills within your developers and gaming. And so I'm interested to know, how, so there's so many different, you live in such a rich environment. there's so many opportunities for skill development that are oftentimes unconventional. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, how can we sort of empower people to realize these skills if they come from institutions, and sort of utilize those for.
So I'm like a complete measurement geek. I love numbers and I measure everything. I'm a little OCD, I guess. So I think for me, when I do things, it's like, well, what are the outcomes going to be? I want to have a great experience, but then besides feeling good about it, how am I going to know like what I mastered or what I got out of it? So I've gotten really involved with physical fitness and weightlifting. I decided that my two metrics were going to be percentage of body fat and how far I could move my heart rate up in terms of way exceeding my age and my lung capacity. So I think it's really the same thing. It's like, maybe you're taking a path that's not just a standard path. How do you know if it's positive? Maybe you're going to get to meet some amazing people or learn a skill you could transfer back into your everyday environment. One of the things I see with a lot of the people I work with is, they're incredible survivors, they're great problem solvers, they're really resilient because they come from environments that are really challenging. You have to think fast and succeed. They don't realize how well those skills translate into sales or marketing, where you have to tell stories to people. And, that's a great example for all of us of, you may be having experiences that you're thinking of them sort of in one way, but if you kind of put them on their head and talk about them another way, be like, oh wow, I just mastered this, really interesting skill. Like, I don't think my nephew realized, and I think that's why talking to people who have different experiences than you is so great. Like, I don't think my nephew realized that his work with these, really boring recycled electronics parts, putting them on eBay was actually like this prep that people's Google AdWords team would be like, wow, you do that? Because it was so much like what it showed he had learned, that he had the traits that they would be looking for someone in that team. So I think the other thing I'd say is that my experience with companies like Google is that a lot of what they're looking for are people who are problem solvers and good learners. You might be learning a different programming language when you get there, and your project requires a list or something that you never thought you were going to learn. And what they're trying to do is think about how quickly can you learn. So the other thing to think about is like, how can I show what my abilities to absorb information and solve problems are, not just what are the actual skills I've mastered. Because whatever you do in a job or anything like, 3 years later, if you're at the same company, you're going to be doing nothing like what you did the day you showed up, and probably something that's not very much like what you did when you were in college.
One idea that I just had, we talked about that, is maybe hangouts, maybe a virtual meeting. Maybe the course could involve a once-a-week meeting between a small group of us. And that small group meeting discussion could be a core part of the course. So out of an obligation to do your part, for groups, you may want to keep up the course, more and more meetings.
I'm just kind of curious. I think the problem, I'm just going to help you kind of hear some of your insights. Just how big a problem it is that UC Berkeley has a policy in which if you don't have people free or hired, you can't be accepted as
UC Berkeley has, what, like 1 million people who apply every year and they take 10%? I went with my other nephew who is, I have another nephew who wants to study chemistry and physics, and he came on a college tour here and they told him how many people applied until they're accepted, and when he found out how many Nobel laureates were in the chemistry department, and UC Berkeley jumped up above Johns Hopkins as his number one choice. Like, just like that, right there. Like we'll find out in a few months. But I think that what you're dealing with is being a super competitive university, one of the most competitive universities in the country. If you were at a university that was much less competitive, they'd be like, great, go ahead, but they're trying to have a forcing field or a winnowing function to be able to have a manageable load in the department. So it's not that it's fair, it's pragmatic. I mean, it's probably not fair, but it's a pragmatic. They have to have a cutoff somewhere because for whatever reason there's not expanding the department. Maybe they are, but not fast enough. So that's just a function of what a competitive school you guys are.
Cool. Hi guys, hi David. I have a question about Khan Academy specifically, but anyone else, feel free to answer this if you think it applies to you as well. So Khan Academy has done a lot in terms of, bringing all this innovation by the use of technology to distribute it to a lot of people. And with Sal Khan's flipped classroom model, there's a lot of interesting and good things going on. My question is, what do you think are your biggest weaknesses or like the biggest challenges that you face in bringing this new education model? And kind of what are some ways like either you or us as a community can overcome those challenges?
Okay, so I'm hearing your question as, what are the biggest challenges to bring the flipped classroom model to
or the use of like this kind of like interactive technology-based lecture model? Either of those.
Okay. What I see as a challenge is the existing school system, where in the existing structures of pretty much get like this 90% on this test or whatever. Another is that it's a very big risk to try a new model. One where people might feel that their personal personal respect is violated. Like if you told a teacher that you're no longer going to teach him because Sal Khan is going to be a teacher, what's that teacher going to do? What's that work? Maybe we have these pretty rigid ideas and roles. What I think Khan Academy could actually come in is instead of devaluing the teachers, we could actually empower them even more. We could give them a role where they're actually, instead of giving a one-size-fits-all lecture and doing that year after year, if they use something like Khan Academy where they could see how well their students are doing on their homework, they could get more personalized. They could go up to Bob and say, hey, it looks like you're struggling with adding like denominators. Or we could have teachers like facilitating discussions. We could have teachers inspiring students. But basically, I think one of the things that hinders adoption of new models is the fact that people are pretty invested in what they currently do, what they currently think, how they currently think things work. And I don't know how to solve that.
Okay. Okay.
strategist as part of the San Francisco Unified District, and I was honestly very encouraged because I think the hardest thing about education is bringing these creative solutions that you guys have like outside of school into the actual school program, and that has to do a lot with this power dynamic with education policy. So I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on just like how you can directly like overcome these problems with policy? I'm more curious towards like how often you have the chance to bring these solutions to policymakers.
you know, as you guys know, being at a large university, you know, there are people who want to preserve the status quo at any cost, and there are people who want to question it and disrupt it and ideally improve it. As you probably gathered already, I have a question everything's troublemaker kind of personality. Well, everybody who works with me knows that. And I think that, you know, it's a question of trying to find these school districts or the educators that want to be innovative and want to change things. You know, I live and work in Oakland. Getting people in Oakland to do anything has been like a nightmare. People are mostly very caught up in what they used to do and how they did before. There's some fantastic innovation around restorative justice and African American male achievement that's really a model for the rest of the country, but a lot of other things they left way behind. And East Bay community colleges are so resistant to any kind of change. Met someone down in San Jose running a community college who's like really excited about partnering with us, trying to create new models. Super impressed with the work at San Francisco Unified. They have this thing, Vision 2025. If you're interested in education, download it from their website. It's all the principles and the framework of what they want education to look like from pre-K through college, you know, in the next, you know, 10 years. And it's really impressive. And this woman I met with today is doing the work to put all those programs in place. So, you know, I think what always happens is in any field, there's people who want to lead the front and kind of experiment and try to create change, and there are people who hang back at any cost, and then there are people in the middle. So, you know, if you're someone who's a problem solver by temperament, you know, try to get in the front, right? Try to get with the people in the front who are the disruptive innovators, not the people in the middle or the back.
All so much for your contributions. I hope that some of what you heard tonight really inspired you to think about education with a different lens. I want to formally conclude the event, but please feel free to grab more refreshments in the back. If you have more questions for David and Susan you just didn't get time with, feel free to approach them now in the next 10 to 15 minutes or so, so you can ask them individually. But again, thank you so much all for coming out in your time, and I hope you enjoyed this evening.